All right, guys, here we go. We'll be making some mac and cheese. So, first cooking video in a while, but might as well have a little fun. Mrs. Dr. Summers is out with her sister for the evening. So this is what I do on a Friday night when I'm all left alone. I eat too many carbs and a whole lot of cheese. So, macaroni and cheese. We're gonna do kind of like a baked version. It kind of comes out a little stuck together. It's pretty tasty, I think, though. For our pasta tonight, we're gonna use casarecce, which, if you could see, is these guys. You can use elbows, you can use cavatelli, really up to you, but I'm just gonna get a pound of pasta, well, I guess 12 ounces of pasta, and I'm gonna get that going. Box says to cook it for 10 minutes. We'll see when it's done. That'll go in our mac and cheese. So, goal for my mac and cheese is always to have it be a little more sophisticated than like Kraft. So that's what we're going for here. So we're going to build some kind of layers of flavor as we go along. I have 4 tablespoons of butter going into my pan right here that we're going to melt. And we're actually going to cook some onion to start with. Start building some flavor in here. You might see Nilla in the video. I dropped some cheese on the floor, so she's a little hungry. I'm going to use one small yellow onion. One small yellow onion that we'll cut into a kind of a fine dice while my butter melts. Can we? Don't really. Yeah, I guess we could see. So the way I dice onions is I take the kind of fuzzy end off. Take the fuzzy end off. And recently I just started doing this. I actually like to take both ends off. Some people use this other end as a way to hold the onion together. I've been finding it unnecessary recently. And I cut it in half so we can peel it. And I like to take, if you can, you gotta kind of see how many layers you need to take out. Definitely take the first kind of outside layer, but you gotta see if the next layer is kind of papery. So this guy is, so I'm actually gonna take 2 layers here, which is okay. We'll take 2 layers out here, and we'll take, 2 layers, I guess, 3 layers on this guy, just to get down to kind of the non-paper bit of the onion. All right, we do that. And now all we have to do is chop it into, this is all going to get kind of cooked together, so I'm just going to do it into slices. If you remember from things I've talked about before, if you look at my knife here, which I think you could see, yeah, my knife, the bottom of it is pretty flat, doesn't have a lot of curve to it. So this knife is meant for like a up and down kind of motion. So you take the knife, you glue it to your fingers, and you chop down. I'll just get a little slice going here. While the dog licks my foot. Hello, Nilla. I'll get the whole small onion going. All right, if you have a knife with a little bit more of a curve to it, that knife is meant to rock on the board. But this guy is really meant to kind of be picked up and down. It's more of a Japanese style. So we're getting our butter melted, and we'll put our onions in the pan. All right, so what we're going to be doing here is actually making something called a roux and then a bechamel sauce, but we're doing it with onions in it, which isn't particularly traditional, but I think it gives it a nice flavor to get a little, kind of a little color on your onions. So mix this guy around. Let's try to get some color on these onions. Unless you're going for a very deep color on your onions, this is always a good time to add salt. So salt tends to bring moisture out of the onions. So I'm going to add a nice kind of pinch and a half of salt there. That'll help bring some of the moisture out of the onions, and some pepper. All right. should always be seasoning as you go along. So while this is going, I'll start talking a little bit about the cheese we're using. So I have 3 types of cheese in here. Let me see if we can see it. There we go. 3 types of cheese in here. We have a yellow cheddar, which I find is maybe a little more flavorful. On the bottom, you might be able to see we have a white cheddar, which I find melts a little better. And I'm actually using Gruyere today, which is a French cheese. It's kind of funky. Kind of get like a garlicky taste to it. I'm tasting it right now. But with that cheese, with what you really kind of want, is I use 12 to 14 ounces of cheese. Roughly, it doesn't have to be exact. And most of it is cheddar, because cheddar melts very nicely. And then I add another cheese for a flavor. So if I'm doing, say, 12 ounces of cheese, it might be like, maybe it's roughly equal, or it might be like 5, 5, and 2. None of it has to be precise. This is a pretty forgiving recipe. Let me give my pasta a stir. Oop, there we go. Let me give my, pasta's getting a little stuck. That's okay. Give it a stir. All right, so while this is going, we got our oven preheated to 350. We're going to end up baking this in the oven. Oven's heated to 350. And going into this is going to be 4 tablespoons of flour to make our roux. Okay, so a roux is just butter and flour. In this case, it's got onions in it. Again, not particularly traditional, but not a big deal. And it's equal parts butter and flour. So I used 4 tablespoons of butter. So I'll use 3 tablespoons of flour. And when we do it, I don't know, I'm probably putting the flour in the way right now. You kind of want to sprinkle it around the pan. It doesn't need to be precise, because what we're going to do is we're going to whisk it to get the lumps out of it. I'm going to whisk it to get the lumps out of it. I'm sure we're going to do it right here. Oops, made a little mess, that's okay. And this will start to kind of thicken up right away, right? This will thicken up right away, and then some stuff on the bottom of my pan's getting a little brown and tasty, and that's fine. But we want to kind of cook this for a minute or so to get the kind of cereal flavor out of the flour. You want it to kind of toast up a little bit. And you'll actually smell when that happens. So at the beginning, it'll just kind of smell like flour. But as you go, it'll start to smell kind of roasty, toasty, kind of nutty, maybe a little bit like a browned butter, kind of that kind of flavor. All right. And then once we get that, just about here, about a minute or so, we add 3 cups of water. Milk. 3 cups of milk. I have whole milk here. And that's just because when my niece and nephew visit, they like to eat whole milk. Or drink whole milk, I guess. Making messes left and right. Let me clean that up. And probably I'd say half and half is the best. Heavy cream's a little too much. Half and half is probably the best. But whole milk is fine. And you want to keep whisking a little bit so you make sure you don't have any lumps from the flour in your sauce, right? And once I add that butter, flour, milk combination, that's called a bechamel sauce. It's called a bechamel. It's one of the classic French sauces. This one happens to have some onions in it. But we really do want to let that come to a bit of a boil. All right, so, which is doing right now. And again, we're going to build some kind of more complex flavors here. So what I'm going to also do is I'm going to add about a tablespoon of, I have here French mustard. You can use French mustard, you can use mustard powder, you can use spicy brown mustard. You can never use French's mustard, right? No yellow mustard. Yellow mustard tends to get very bitter, actually, when you cook with it. So we'll put our mustard in here, and you can actually see our sauce is getting kind of very thick here. All right, so let me get my whisk out and whisk it up. All right, sauce is getting very thick. And I'm also going to add, I don't know, roughly a teaspoon, of paprika, just to give it a little color and a little kind of smokiness. So here we go, we got this going. And nextly, we're going to add our cheese. And we just add it all at once. And we keep whisking. It's going to clump up at first. But it'll thin out. Just keep whisking. Go slow at first so you don't make a mess. But then we keep whisking. And here's our cheese sauce, right? We take a bechamel and we make it into a cheese sauce. You don't want to use cheese that doesn't melt very well, right? Otherwise, you're going to get a kind of a very lumpy sauce. You can use a little bit of it. So sometimes instead of the Gruyere, making a more mess, making some more of a mess. So instead of the Gruyere, I'll use like a Pecorino Romano. That could be a little salty. I use like Fontina, which is really nice. But I'm using Gruyere tonight because it was on sale. So that's that. So we got our cheese sauce going here. We're looking pretty well incorporated. I'm actually going to take it off the heat. If you're a lucky person with a gas stove, you could just turn that off. But unfortunately, we have electric up in the country. So I'll just move it off the burner. Let me test my pasta. And it's a little hot. All right, we're just short of al dente, which is probably perfect because this will be cooked in the oven for a little bit as well. So we're just a little shy of al dente. I need a strainer. Can't seem to find a strainer. There's a strainer. There we go. There's a strainer. And we add our pasta. A little bit of pasta water to help kind of thin it out a little bit directly to our cheese sauce. And stir it together. Probably a whisk isn't the best choice for this. I'll switch over to a spoon. All right, get it nice and stirred together. Nice and covered. All right, and this is actually going to get a topping, but let's let this all hang out. And this is a great time to actually taste it. So grab a Roni for yourself. And see what you think it needs. I actually think right now this really could use some pepper. I'm going to put a ton of pepper in it. I really do like a lot of pepper in my cooking. Good amount of pepper. And I'll give it another taste. It might need a little salt as well. All right, I'll give it a little taste. Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little salt. It's really important when you're cooking to make sure to taste your food. Otherwise, you don't know what you're missing or what is going well for you. So I'll mix that together. And we got to do our topping. All right, our topping, we do a kind of a breadcrumb topping. I'll take this, I'll push this off to the side. We're going to use panko breadcrumbs. We're going to use panko breadcrumbs and some butter. Okay, so I'm going to open up my panko. All right, and we need some more butter. We're going to need 3 tablespoons. Where did I put the rest of my butter? Butter. Butter makes everything better. Yeah, that's enough butter. That's not 3 tablespoons. Oh, there it is. Here's my butter. I need a little pan. Oh, for those of you who watch too many cooking shows, or you know about this. My mise en place is pretty terrible tonight, but you know, it's Friday. Who needs to be organized? So there's actually 4 tablespoons of butter, but butter makes everything better, so that's fine. And once this butter gets melted, we're going to add a cup of breadcrumbs, toast them up, put them right on top, and then we'll stick our mac and cheese in the oven. So also let that butter get a little melty. So I found issues with electric stoves is that like the burners are always hot after you turn them off. So I found a burner that I had on before, which is fine, but my mac and cheese is bubbling away. All right, so some things you can think about with this, like, so I'm making this mostly for myself. I'm going to use the leftovers. I'm going to have someone who's a vegetarian come and visit. So I wanted to make this kind of veggie friendly. But instead of butter when you made your roux, you can use like pancetta or bacon to use like a pork fat. And then you can have some pieces of bacon floating around in there as well. If you get really fancy, you can use guanciale, which is an uncured type of bacon, which is really tasty. But here we go. I have want to add about like a cup of breadcrumbs. All right, yeah, about that much. That's good. And we're gonna try to coat it in the butter. Making even more of a mess. We're making a big mess tonight. And we'll give it a little stir. We just want to toast this up a little bit. Toast this up. All right, and it goes really fast, so keep it moving. Keep it moving. Oop, get some on the burner. Keep it moving. Yeah, we're just about there. All right, and we put it on top. See if we can get some nice toasty breadcrumb action on top here. You might be asking why not just toast use the heat of the oven to toast the breadcrumbs. And it's because there's going to be a lot of steam in it from the mac and cheese itself. So it's not going to do a great job of getting hot and toasting the breadcrumbs. So this, which is hot, is good to go into the oven. I'm going to throw it in there, and we'll come back and take a peek at it when it's done. You're going to bake this for half an hour. So I'll put it in. Oh, put it in there. Let this get nice and bubbly. We'll bake for half an hour. And I'll see you when it's done.